In this lesson, we'll cover how to build better sentences. The material in this lesson is adapted from Building Great Sentences by Brooks Landon. Why should a sequence of words be anything but a pleasure? This sentence by Gertrude Stein is a great example of an intentional sentence. When we write casually, such as emails and text messages to friends and family and posts on social media, we don't generally spend a lot of time constructing our sentences. But sentence construction is essential to good writing. Writing a good sentence is a craft, and like any craft, it takes practice. There are two qualities that help define a good sentence. A good sentence is both effective and impressive, and each sentence contains propositions created by subjects and predicates. Remember that the subject of a sentence is the doer of the action, and the predicate is everything that comes after the subject. Let's take a moment to review basic sentence grammar. The subject is the noun, pronoun, or noun phrase that is doing or being something. For instance, in the sentence, Mary rides horses every day, the subject is Mary because Mary is the one riding the horses. The predicate includes the verb and all the pieces that follow. Therefore, the predicate is the verb rides, the direct object horses, and the adverbial phrase every day. For a sentence to be complete, it must contain both a subject and a verb. Mary rides is a complete sentence, but rides is not. Neither is Mary. However, ride can be a complete sentence. It's an imperative sentence giving a command, and though you don't see it, there is a subject. The subject is the understood you. You ride. Now that we understand the basic building blocks of a sentence, let's look at ways to make a sentence effective. Remember that for a sentence to be good, it must be effective and impressive. The three parts of a sentence that determine style and effectiveness are the propositional content, the word choice, and the syntax. The propositional content is the heart of the sentence. It's the meaning behind the words, a statement of reality that can be accepted or rejected. Basically, this is the material that gives a sentence its meaning, and it's more than just the words on the page. For instance, I can write, I am a teacher. For that sentence to make sense, though, my audience has to understand three things. I exist, or there is an I in the first place. There is a thing called a teacher, and I am one of those things. These are the meanings my sentence proposes, and my audience must choose to either accept them as true or reject them as false. If my audience rejects any of these propositions, the meaning of my sentence falls apart. Now you try it with I like cheeseburgers. Take 1 minute to write out the propositions for that sentence. Press pause while you do. When you are done, press play to resume the video. Most of you probably followed the same format as we used for I am a teacher, but there's an extra step I'd like to point out. The word like is subjective. It can mean different things to different people. When I say I like cheeseburgers, I know that I'm trying to communicate the fact that cheeseburgers are one of my favorite foods. If you were standing in front of me, listening to me say that sentence, you would also read my body language and my vocal inflections to help you understand exactly what I mean when I say I like cheeseburgers. In writing, though, we don't have the advantages of our physical presence to help underscore meaning. Instead, we have to be sure we are clearly communicating our intent through language, and that brings us to word choice. Word choice helps define writing style, and style is an important component in both effectiveness and impressiveness. We want our words to reflect our purpose. For instance, in academic writing, we would use the word discourse instead of chat, or rhetoric instead of words meant to make you think a certain way or do a certain thing. And we also want our words to convey our precise intent. That takes a bit more effort than just writing out the first version of a sentence that comes to mind. By examining our options for the words we use, we can create different effects in a sentence. One way to begin that examination is through Hayakawa's ladder of abstractions. According to Jan Strever, most writing contains a range of abstraction levels, but successful professional writers draw heavily on level 1 abstractions. Sophistication of thought deals in the realm of abstraction, but sophistication of writing is achieved through supporting those abstractions with concrete details. In the simplest terms, then, If level 1 abstraction is used in writing, the audience will understand what ideas and concepts are being discussed. If a writer is trying to describe a person and she mentions that the protagonist wore Birkenstocks and a jean skirt, an image is evoked in the reader's mind. Whereas, if the writer says the protagonist was dressed in casual attire, the reader's impression of the character is not as strong, and the audience will be free to interpret the writer's meaning in many ways. Wearing a green and pink housecoat with flip-flops would mean casual to many people, so using the levels of abstraction carefully will help convey meaning to the audience. Straver's description of the difference between level 4 and level 1 abstractions helps clarify how to use Hayakawa's level of abstractions. When you write a sentence, be sure you're looking carefully at your word choice. If you want your audience to picture something specific, be sure you use level 1 abstractions. If you want to leave your audience more room to interpret on their own, which is usually not a good idea in academic writing, you might lean towards some of the level 2 or level 3 abstractions. The level 4 abstractions rarely create strong writing, so it's best to avoid those. Let's take a look again at our sentence about cheeseburgers. Is it enough to say cheeseburgers? Not all cheeseburgers are the same. If I write that I like cheeseburgers, someone might bring me a Burger King cheeseburger, but I'm not really fond of their burgers. It would help if I was more specific. By telling my audience exactly what kind of cheeseburger I like, I'm more likely to get what I want. Be careful here, though. My purpose will dictate what my word choice will be. If I'm trying to get someone to bring me food, I want to be very specific. However, if cheeseburgers are just an example of a larger concept I'm trying to discuss, I might want to back out of that detail a bit. For example, if I'm exploring the cheeseburger as an example of an American bar food, I probably don't need to be as specific as the Bim Bam 3-cheese bacon burger. Cheeseburger would be sufficient. Purpose is important. Remember to keep in mind exactly what you're trying to communicate to your audience. It's important to understand that Hayakawa's ladder of abstractions only works for nouns. For verbs, your goal isn't necessarily finding a word or phrase that is more or less abstract. Instead, you're looking for a word or phrase that is precise. Let's go back to cheeseburgers. Cheeseburgers are one of my absolute favorite foods, but if I just write, I like cheeseburgers, my audience might read, cheeseburgers are okay. If you put one in front of me, I'd be okay with eating it. I want to be sure my intent is clear. To determine that, I need to ask myself if like is really the right word for my sentence. Wouldn't it be better to write, I really love cheeseburgers? Word choice works on the vertical axis. Essentially, that means you can create a chart and list the alternatives vertically to help find the precise combination of words that create the best impact on your audience. One thing to note with word choice is that in academic argument, this is really the only way to utilize pathos to appeal to your audience. Since some words carry with them certain connotative value, you can invoke particular emotional responses without obviously leading emotions to support your argument. In academic writing, it's best to avoid obvious attempts to manipulate the audience's emotions, which makes word choice such an effective tool in creating pathos. Syntax is different from word choice. When you work with syntax, you aren't changing the words, you're changing the word order. Let's look at Gertrude Stein's sentence again. Why should a sequence of words be anything but a pleasure? How does the audience receive that question? Compare it to an alternative. Shouldn't a sequence of words be a pleasure? This version sounds like it's actually asking the question and looking for an answer. However, Stein's sentence isn't really asking for an answer. She knows the answer. The syntax of her sentence assumes the necessity of writing sentences to create pleasure. There is simply no other way of doing it. If you disagree with her, she isn't interested. Her syntax assumes her position is correct, and she leaves very little room for doubt. Syntax operates on the horizontal axis. You play with syntax by moving words and phrases around, looking at each arrangement until you find the one that delivers the impact you want for your audience. Pause this video and take a few minutes to complete this activity. Use the example provided to help. When you're ready to resume, press play. Of course, we've already covered writing concisely. Doesn't that contradict everything you're seeing here? Isn't the goal to eliminate words? Yes, the goal is to eliminate words, but only if those words aren't necessary. A good sentence anticipates the reader's questions and answers them before the reader has a chance to question in the first place. Listen to this sentence. Cumulative sentences fascinate me with their ability to add information that actually makes the sentence easier to read and more satisfying. Does that sentence make sense to you? Do you have any questions? If your answer is no, you must already know what a cumulative sentence is. Do you? Most freshman students don't. Therefore, the writer of that sentence needs to anticipate that confusion and be sure to clarify. Cumulative sentences, those loose sentences that quickly posit a base and then elaborate it by adding modifying words and phrases, fascinate me with their ability to add information that actually makes the sentence easier to read and more satisfying. By anticipating the audience's needs, the sentence is effective. By using eloquent word choice and syntax while still ensuring every part of the sentence is necessary, the sentence is impressive. Strunk and White wrote the book, quite literally, there is a book, on writing concisely. But even they note the importance of growing sentences with relevant words. They state, this requires not that the reader make all sentences short, or that he avoid all detail and treat subjects only in outline, but that every word tell. Pause this video and take a moment for this activity. When you are ready to resume, press play. Now that you know about word choice and syntax, let's talk about actually growing sentences. There are 3 ways to grow a sentence. The first is to add propositional information by using conjunctions or connective words. The second is by using subordinating parts. And the third is by using modifying words and phrases. The connective syntax is like a train. It just attaches pieces together with conjunctions and connective words, stringing them out like boxcars. The girl raised the flag. The girl raised the flag and was proud to see it waving once again over the town square. You can add more to that sentence with other connectors. The girl raised the flag and was proud to see it waving once again over the town square because the flag was the country's symbol of freedom. The girl raised the flag while the crowd watched, and she was proud to see it waving once again over the town square because the flag was the country's symbol of freedom. Of course, if you add too much, the sentence becomes cumbersome and a distraction to your audience. You can also add propositional content by using subordinate phrases. The girl, who was the only survivor, raised the flag. The girl, who stood in front of the gathering crowd, raised the flag that had long been a symbol of the resistance movement. Remember the nursery rhyme, "This is the house that Jack built"? This is the house that Jack built. This is the malt that lay in the house that Jack built. This is the rat that ate the malt that lay in the house that Jack built. This is the cat that killed the rat that ate the malt that lay in the house that Jack built. This goes on until the final verse. This is the farmer sowing his corn that kept the cock that crowed in the morn, that waked the priest all shaven and shorn, that married the man all tattered and torn, that kissed the maiden all forlorn, that milked the cow with the crumpled horn, that tossed the dog that worried the cat, that killed the rat, that ate the malt that lay in the house that Jack built. What an excellent example of subordinative syntax. Finally, you can add propositional content by using adverbs and adjectives. The young girl raised the flag. The young girl raised the flag, a triumphant grin on her face, the flag's green-striped fabric tattered and torn by bullets, her bravery and inspiration to her compatriots. Of course, a good sentence will use a combination of methods to add propositional content, seeking to create a fluid statement packed with meaning. Consider all the propositions listed here. How can all of this fit in one sentence without overburdening the audience with a cumbersome statement? Early this morning, in a small highway town, hungry and in danger, the young boy, looking neither left nor right, climbed the city hall path. Finally, take a few moments to create a sentence from this content. Use the strategies you have learned from the presentation to write an effective and impressive sentence.